Hey, what's cracker lacking today? Didn't open all the way. I'm Scotty. You're not. Yeah, I got a new Yeti to keep myself cold. Got it for my birthday. Which hasn't happened yet, but we're an early thing for reasons. So, we are talking about Fat Albert, which I have back there on DVD. It's in the movie. And yeah, so this came out back in 2004. And I didn't know really much anything about Fat Albert. I'd heard about Fat Albert before. I knew who created Fat Albert. Back then, he wasn't a problem, but now he kind of is. But yeah, created by Bill Cosby. Came out back in the 70s, and I knew about it. Didn't know much about it, but I really did want to see this movie. Why is that? Two words. Kenan Thompson. Yes, you know me. I'm a child of Nickelodeon. Specifically all that and Kenan and Kel. So, and Good Burger. So, when I saw that Kenan Thompson was playing Fat Albert, I had to go see this movie. We didn't see it in theaters. We waited till the DVD came out. We rented it and we watched it. The thing is, there's actually quite a bit of my childhood in this movie. So much so that I almost reviewed it this year for birth month, but I put it off because I eventually wanted to do like a based on TV-a-thon, but that's how it came to this. I just decided to do it for this based on TV month. So we'll go through the cast, that from my childhood. So yeah, so the movie starts out with better animation than the show ever had. And that's the one thing that takes me out of this movie is every time they cut back to the animated world. It reminds me of Space Jam, where like when I was a kid it didn't bug me, but I watched Space Jam now and I'm like, that animation is way too good for the Looney Tunes, and now this is way too good for Fat Albert. Uh, yeah, because they didn't have much for animation back in enough budget for the animation back in the 70s, especially for a show that was for all these purposes. It was one of those educational shows for kids back in the day, and that's what it was. So yeah, they didn't have much of a budget, you know. But yeah, we start with the theme song. Hey, it's Fat Albert, and I'm gonna sing a song for you. But we're gonna show you a thing or two instead of the actual words, and Bill's gonna show you a thing or two because on the show, because I rented some DVDs afterwards, there'd be a cartoon segment, and then Bill Cosby would show up in live action, and he would show you how to build things or some shit. You want to see Bill Cosby with an afro? Go ahead. But yeah, so yes, Fat Albert. But then we cut to the real world and we meet Doris, played by Kyla Pratt. Proud family, proud family, proud family. Don't mess with Sugar Mama. Yeah, yeah, she's from Proud Family. I knew her. Also, one on one. Yeah, I watched reruns on the end. One on one, which also featured Robert Richard from Cousin Skeeter. Yeah. Yeah, and she is having problems with her foster sister, who is not related to her in any way, blood-wise. I have to preface that. Played by Dania Ramirez. Her name is Lori, played by Dania Ramirez from Heroes, Season 2. I promise I'm going to go back and finish that up. I only got the rest of Season 3 and then Season 4. It's not that much, but at some point. Oh, and then Heroes Reborn, which I don't want to do, but I will. I'm going to go back at some point. I've been busy, you know that. So anyway, Doris doesn't have any friends, and there's this guy named Reggie, played by Omarion. He was a thing for about 5 minutes back in the 2000s. We didn't care then. We don't care now. Who knows? So, uh, yeah, he has a thing for Lori, although that's never really pushed that much. There's like a scene where he's like, "Oh, she's just with him because she's not trying to make me jealous, so I'm gonna make her jealous." So he dances with Doris, who has had no attraction to him whatsoever. That's just later, anyway. So yeah, Doris comes home from school and she's sad and she's watching Fat Albert on TV Land. Fat Albert, as far as I know, never aired on TV Land. They just had to. There had to be a channel. They had to figure out a channel that would air Fat Albert, and TV Land made the most sense. I don't remember what. I watched a lot of TV Land in the 2000s. Yes, sir. I did. Gilligan's Island, guilty. Three's Company, guilty. Get Smart, yes, sir. The Brady Bunch, you betcha. You know, all those shows. Facts of Life, Happy Days, oh yes. All those shows that were on there. Mary Tyler Moore, that was more Nick at Night. But still, like, all the stuff that played on there, but good times. Yes. Watched a lot of, I like to watch the old sitcoms. Nick at Night was starting to play more modern stuff. Not like modern, but like 80s and 90s. Even in the 2000s. They still had classic stuff, but then you had other stuff that they didn't play in there. Like, they had like, what was it? What was that show? I don't know. I just remember TV Land. Other stuff. But one of the things was not Fat Albert, but I guess they needed a channel that made sense to play it. It did make sense. I could see it playing on there. It didn't, though. But anyway, so she's watching on TV Land, and Albert's going to help this little girl, but he hears Doris crying and decides he's got to go help her, so he jumps through the television and turns into Kenan Thompson. Yes, we already knew that. Kenan Thompson plays Fat Albert, and I think he's really good as Fat Albert. He's in a fat suit because while Kenan is a big man like myself, he's not that big. So, yeah. So, he's in there talking to Doris. She's like, well, you gotta go back in. But then everybody else, I always thought this was weird that because Fat Albert's out there, everyone just follows him. And yes, this is one of those, and we just take characters from the animated world and bring them to the real world. Yeah, but unlike, say, the Looney Tunes or the Smurfs, actually very much like, the hell was the first movie I did? Not Richie Rich. The first one. No, it's not SWAT. What was the first? I swear that's what it was, right? I'm losing my mind. Hold on. There goes the garbage. Damn it. Alvin and the Chipmunks. Alvin and the Chipmunks. And I say this is like Alvin and the Chipmunks because those are supposed to be realistic chipmunks. Real chipmunks, but they're not cartoons. I had to pick up my garbage. Sorry. I don't need to take it out. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Take my trash out tomorrow. There. Oh. Alright, let's try this again. So, everybody comes out. Now I gotta remember the names. I don't know all the actors. But you get Bill, played by, what's his name? Something Robertson. I know, Robinson. I know him as Sky Cowboy Joel Rollins, a.k.a. the Green Ranger on Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Yeah, he plays Bill. Wonder where they got inspiration for that name. And you have Mushmouth, whose actor I also don't remember, but he was Slaw on The Jersey. Underrated Disney show, by the way. It taught kids about sports and sports stars, you know. There's Dumb Donald, who's an actor I don't know and I don't know where he's from. Um, Rudy, who's an actor I also don't know. And then there is oh, I messed up. It's Weird Harold, who's an actor I don't know. Dumb Donald is played by Marquise Houston, who is in Sister. Yes. He was also a musician for a while there. Doesn't in his music, but yeah. It's weird to see him without the dreads, or, but he's actually bald when they show him without the head. So, yeah. So, she's like, no, you guys gotta go back in. And when they turn around to go back in, the episode is over, which gives us our reasoning for why they don't go back in, right? Like, oh, they can't go back in unless their show is actually on air. So, luckily, they're showing reruns that don't actually happen in real life. So, visibility out the window. So then they gotta stay there. So they do, yeah. So the next day, they decide to go to school with Doris, as they can't go back into. This is also unrealistic for me. They also can't go back into the until the next rerun, which is the next day at 2:30. To me, that's unrealistic because TV Land loves playing marathons. You think there'd be more, at least back to back, unless it was 2 to 3, like an hour block. So you get 2 to 2:30 and 2:30 to 3. Then perhaps. Another question: what school is out before? Well, I guess a lot of schools they get done at 2:45, so she comes home to catch the end of that episode. I guess. I wonder what's on after it. Coming up next, The Cosby Show. Nope. No. Too problematic. Lord knows there's nothing problematic in this show. This movie. So, yes, I know they gave Ricky Starks the stupid name. That's going to be timeful by the time this comes out in March. Anyway, timely, I guess is the word. So, they're on the way to school and they notice a man who's talking on a phone without a cord. He's played by Jeff Garlin. Oh, God, no. Nope. Jeff Garlin. Yeah, okay. He's going to be the most problematic person in this movie, Jeff Garlin. You don't know there was a thing where he was on the whatever that show was, I can't remember the name. The Goldbergs. And then he did some bad things, and then he was off the show, and yeah. I liked Jeff Garlin, this and Daddy Daycare, but sometimes bad things happen. He's only got a quick cameo here as Jer, who's on the phone, and I don't know, it's a quick cameo, I don't know, never comes back, but they go to school, and they're just allowed to join Doris's class, and we're lucky because there happen to be the exact amount of desks, empty desks, for them to sit in. Also in the classroom is Aaron Carter. Well, he's not problematic, but still a bit touchy for me. I told you my childhood was in this. Yeah. Flashback to 1999 when Scotty found Aaron Carter for the first time listening to music. And actually, you go before that, he was on Figure It Out. I never realized it, because when I found him, he had short hair doing Aaron's Party, Come Get It. And then I was watching reruns of Figure It Out on Nickelodeon or Nick Gas, and he popped up with his little mop top hair. I'm like, that's him? Which is really funny because back when I first saw the episode, I thought it was a girl. Hey, people said the same thing about Hanson. Okay? But, yeah, even though Isaac, but the flower's gonna grow. Anyway, so yeah, and they don't really do much of a joke where they have a laptop. He's like, "What's this?" And then it cuts. Like they don't want to stretch out the joke. Yeah. So the gang are introduced to Lori, and Fat Albert immediately has a thing for her. Now, you're gonna think it's weird. Well, they're all technically adults, I think. They're close enough. Like, Kenan was pushing 30 at this point, I think. And, like, the characters are supposed to be... I always thought the characters were kids. Like, little kids. I guess they're supposed to be teenagers, but I always thought they were little kids. But I guess not. Or at least middle school age or something. I never thought teenagers, but I guess you're a teenager or high schoolers. Well, yeah. So, while there, Reggie is back, and he's on the track, and the track and field team. He's on the track, and he challenged the Fat Albert to a race because he's fat, so I can beat him, right? And man, I wish I could run like Fat Albert. That would get me places much faster because he starts running like this, which would make me out of breath instantly. Fat Albert's bigger than me. He's just really fast, and he beats him, and then he gets all mad. Reggie gets all mad, and then he gets something in his eye, and Lori blows out, and he's like, he's all happy, and we get the song, "He's a Bad Man Pajama." So they're allowed to stay for like a couple extra days. Meanwhile, in the cartoon world, the bad guys that challenged them to a game of Buck Buck, of which in any of the episodes I watched, I don't remember seeing that game, but maybe they just wouldn't. I don't know. Because I rented some DVDs from the library after the fact so I could watch the actual cartoon. Well, they find out the Fat Albert is not there, and so they kick Bill's brother out of the junkyard. Because, in a cartoon like this, you gotta fight over a junkyard. And they say it's their junkyard now, and they sing their version of the theme song. Nah, 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 gonna have a bad time. Ha, ha, ha. Nah, 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 gonna have a bad time. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, it's stupid. So, yeah. So you may be wondering, how come nobody recognizes them except for Doris? Honestly, I don't know. Because the only other person that recognizes them is this little kid when they go to the amusement park. And to me, that has always made no sense. You think older audiences would recognize them over kids. Like, Doris would have even been watching it if she had... I'm assuming she came home and just turned on the TV and it was on that channel. I don't even think she actually watches the show. But she knows who Fat Albert is, I guess. She's also half an American and this little boy was white. So, I don't know. And his white dad doesn't know. This is later in the film, by the way. But yeah, and there's this party in the middle of their block, which I assume because there's so much problems with noise ordinances and stuff, but I'm not going to question it. And this is where we get the rap version of the theme song, which led to a moment of irony back in 2004, 2005. So, we rented the movie, we watched it, and a few days later, we went to this. It was like a wedding reception or something. And they had karaoke there. And they had karaoke soundtrack for Fat Albert. Yeah, or either there was that or they had the actual soundtrack there. Yeah. That's irony. Hey yo. Hey yo. Yeah. And this is where things get weird after this. So Doris decides, hey, why don't, instead of you going to school with me, why don't you go to the park? Right? Go to the park. And then 2:30 we'll meet back here and I'll take you home. So they've been talking about how they feel like they're getting uh, starting to fade. By the way, Aaron Carter is also starting to turn into Rudy, sort of. He at this party he's wearing a hat just like Rudy's, and then later when they go to school, this is later, they come up and he's dressed just like him, but his clothes are not faded. They're talking about how they're starting to fade a little bit. So that gives a sense of urgency, like if they don't get back to the TV, that they're gonna not exist anymore. But they decide to take these very original characters and say that because they're staying in the real world, not going to stay there, they're going to change. So they go to the park, except for Dumb Donald, who goes to the library because he stupid. And so the first thing that happens is that Mushmouth, who can open dabba speak a dabba dibba dooba, and that's to be translated by Harold. Oh, there was also a montage. I forgot to mention there's a montage where he and Bucky. Oh, I forgot about Bucky. He and Bucky go shopping, but the payoff is that he doesn't have no money. So all he gets is the free hat that was given to him. There's really no reason for that other than for that joke, and it's such a cliche joke, even in 2004, that I don't know we needed that, but whatever. Anyway. During this whole time here at the park, Mushmouth, with the help of a little girl, well, he's like, Ba-Balloomba. She's like, balloon. Ba-Balloomba. Ba-loon. Say ba-loon. Loon. Ba-loon. Ba-loon. And then he can just speak normal language. And yeah, this didn't age well. He, ma'am, I just had a wonderful conversation with your daughter. And she's like, yeah, sure. Come on, honey, let's go. Yeesh. A family picture. Again, though, this only works because you have written that nobody knows who these characters are. Despite the fact that earlier in the film, I've got to mention, when they're walking around, they see an ad for them on a TV screen for them on DVD or DVD. So people should know who they are, especially since they are on TV Land apparently, right? And even Reggie, when he sees what's going on TV, knows who they are. But yet, nobody recognizes them. And that's like, I don't know, it's a plot hole or just it's a plot convenience that no one recognizes them because they really should. They really should. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, so now Mushmouth is speaking English. Normal English. Weird Harold is no longer clumsy. He can play basketball. He's now Air Harold now. Yeah. Nothing weird happens with Bucky and Bill. But meanwhile, in the library, Doris runs into Dumb Donald, and he has enough of the hat, which they say he has no face, but he takes it off, and he has a face. Face of a 30-year-old man. But a face, nonetheless. So he has a face now. Yeah. So they all meet back at Doris's house, where they're going to jump through the TV. And, they go back to the school to meet up with Dumb Donald, who now has a face. And that's where they bump into Aaron Carter, who is fading, who says that they're fading. And then Bucky slides down the thing, and his butt is exposed. We don't see it because family picture. And then they're like, okay, we got to go back. But they have to kind of walk around him so no one can see his butt. And so Bucky, Dumb Donald, and Weird Harold all jump into the TV, but the others aren't able to jump in there because of a breaking news thing. By the time it's over, the show's over, I guess. So, yeah. But again, I want to point out, much like I pointed out earlier, that she caught the end of this episode. So, for her to get there at 2:30. She left school early because, as I mentioned earlier, they had to have left by 2:45 for her to get there and the show be over right away. And also in the cartoon world, they said that they're going to play Buck in the next episode, which would have been that episode, but I guess they're going to move it to another episode. I don't know. It's very weird. It literally hasn't been the same episode that they were watching when they came out. But anyway. So now they're going to go to the carnival. So, Mushmouth, Bill, and Rudy put together a fake car, which Mushmouth and Bill are powering by themselves in the front of the car to take them to the carnival. Yeah, I forgot to mention when they're at the party. I briefly mentioned some of this. So when Reggie sees Fat Albert and Lori dancing together, he asks Doris to dance to make Lori jealous. But then really tries to kiss her. She's like, no. And he tries it again. She's like, no. And then Fat Albert gets her from him and goes, leave Doris alone, or you have to deal with me. And I love when Reggie turns around, everybody is just right there. And then Bucky does. Yeah. So, that night, when they're at the carnival, that's when the little boy says, you have to go back into your world. Your friends need your help. The bad guys are doing bad things. What would Mr. Cosby say? So, having a crisis of faith, he goes to see Bill Cosby. Yep. Bill Cosby's alone in his house, because of course he is. I don't know. I'm not making any jokes. So he answers the door, and he passes out in Albert's arms. Like, no, I'm not making a joke. No, I'm not making a joke. I'm not making a joke. Yeah, he's like, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, you're supposed to be in the TV. You got to go in there because you got to solve the problems. And he's like, no, I want to stay out here. What happened? I didn't get here. I heard a little girl crying. Who? Doris. Doris who? Doris Robertson. He's like, Doris Robertson. Her grandfather was Albert Robinson. I based you off of him. And apparently that isn't true. I don't know if he has a granddaughter or anything, but apparently that is true. But, yeah, so because he's based off of her grandfather, he heard her crying and was able to come to the TV, that's why. Now, if you're thinking that makes things weird with him and Lori, might I remind you, Lori is Doris's foster sister. Not blood related. Just foster sister. So, he's okay. One thing I also forgot to say is that Rudy also has a thing for Doris. I don't know if I mentioned that. He does. That doesn't really go anywhere, but he has it. That all wraps up in, like, when they're at the carnival, it's like, can I ask you, will you ever go on a date with me? She's like, we're on a date now. Yeah. That's it. So the next day, they're all ready to go back, and they're very faded now. And Doris has a track meet. Right? So Bill and Mushmouth and Rudy all jump back in, but Fat Albert's like, no. Turns off the TV because he's got to make sure that Doris wins. So when they do the relay race, and Doris is now the anchor. Lori was always the anchor, but now Doris is, and it was Fat Albert's idea. Cool. Then Fat Albert shows up to cheer her on, and she wins. I don't think we actually needed him to be there. I felt like they could have had their goodbye. He jumps back in, and she wins. thinking about him. I don't know. Because all this does is really run out the runtime a little bit. Because, like, after he's like really fading and he's basically dying because Bill Cosby said, "You're going to turn into the cellulite dust if you don't get back into TV. You're going to be like the pudding without the milk. Just the part to go." He doesn't say that part, but that would have been better. You're going to, if you don't go back in there, you're going to be like the Jello pudding without the milk. You're just going to be like the powder go. You want to know my favorite Bill Cosby line? It's from the movie Ghost Dad. I haven't even seen the whole movie yet, but I know it from the Nostalgia Critic episode where he goes, because he picks up the phone. Keep in mind, from what I remember, no one can see him, just hear him. So he gets on the phone. This is weird because I don't think anyone else is supposed to understand him, but I don't know. So he gets on the phone, and the guy asks for the daughter, and he's like, "You want to talk to my daughter?" And he's like, "Yeah, put the bitch on the phone." And then he says like 3 times, "Put the bitch on the phone. Put the bitch on the phone." Just how he says it. Put the bitch on the phone. I got to talk about Ghost Dad. I got that on that 10 family collection. I said I was going to review all of those as a review series, and I just haven't gotten to it 3 years later. But yeah, just that. Put the bitch on the phone is how we. So anyway, so like I said, this goes on a bit too long. So they go to take him back, and Reggie shows up, haven't figured out who he is. But there's no real resolution to this because Fat Albert just grabs him and goes, "Hey, hey, hey, get out of my way," and then throws him out of there. And they go take him back. They use a skateboard, and then he just sort of conveniently, the skateboard takes him all the way there, jumping over stuff, going on picnic tables, and it so happens to lead him right back to the house. I don't know that was needed. We could have just cut. It just stretches the runtime out. He gets back. I do like. So at this point, he has told Lori who he is, but she didn't believe him. And at this point, they're going to get back in the TV, and she doesn't believe him. And then turn on the TV, and Bill pops up. "Hey, Fat Albert!" Ah! And she jumps behind the couch. That's when she finally believes. And he's like, "Oh, I got to go back in." She's like, "I finally remember who you remind me of. Remind me of my grandpa." "Hey, hey, hey, that's a nice thing to say." He says, "I love you," to Doris. It's not supposed to be romantic. It's supposed to be all, "Aw, like a grandpa." And he goes back in, and he gets stuck again. I've got to mention, when he comes out, he gets stuck. And they're trying to grab on his legs and pull him back. And "Get out, let go of my legs. Let go my legs." And here it's like, "Push me in. Push me in." And they got to push him in. And they play Buck Buck. It's basically a repeat of the first part of the movie, the episode. There's Fat Albert. He loves it when we say his name. And then it's Buck Buck. Yeah. And then we get a sad scene. It's Doris is standing there, and there's a bunch of people in front of her grandfather's grave, and it's Bill Cosby, a bunch of other old people that all resemble the gang. And if you didn't recognize it, they show you. Because, like, you see Bill Cosby, and they cut to Bill, and then in the next one they do an order, and all the other ones, they keep cutting back to the other versions. And it is kind of sad. I watched this. Then I watch it now. Even with Bill Cosby being who he is now, I still kind of cry because it's like, oh, they lost their friend, you know. And what's more, if you think of the gang, they lost their leader. You know, if you think of them, if they're like the gang, he was their leader, the guy they looked up to the most, you know. So, yeah. And then we get a reprisal of the theme song. So, I'm going to give Fat Albert pretty good. And to the Nostalgia Critic, this is not a bad movie, shut up. I like this movie, man. Okay, whatever may come of Bill Cosby and what happened afterwards, it doesn't matter. I like this movie. You know, but yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Fat Albert? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Sky, and I'll see you in the next one.